Hey guys, it's Chris with Drop Dice, and I am back again to talk to you about what is Blades in the Dark, and today we are lurking in the shadows. We're going to build a lurk. A lurk is a stealthy infiltrator and burglar. So this is kind of your typical rogue, if you will, for a fantasy analogous. Remember that all characters in the game are scoundrels, so everybody does have a lot of similar abilities, but where the lurk really shines is that infiltration and burglary side. A lot of their abilities are tied to that specifically. So let's just jump right in. So I've already done our normal thing. Our character is going to be named Cross, who goes by the alias Cross. He just calls himself that all the time, or at least I should say he, she, it, they, whatever term you choose to use, because the look is ambiguous. No one's really sure if Cross is a male or a female. The build is athletic and striking, and Cross wears an eelskin bodysuit, something that doesn't give a lot away, hide a lot, but Cross is still unable to necessarily be identified, and Cross kind of likes it that way. And that might be closely related to his heritage, or her heritage, or its heritage. Cross is Tycherosi and has snake-like skin. That is the Tycherosi tail. Every Tycherosi character does have a tail, which shows their demon heritage, and that's what Cross actually sports. Cross's background is underworld. He previously was a hired thug, but has moved a little bit away from that, and we'll kind of get into that here in a bit. The vice is going to be pleasure, and the vice purveyor is Roland Varus of the Vale Social Club and Night Market. And my idea here, which I'm going to notate as well, is that it's for the music in the club. If you guys took the time to watch that It Me JP channel, you'll see that Aldo inside there has a vice of just the arts in general, whether it's going to see different things, like going to theater to relieve stress. The reason I thought music would be kind of cool is because what if Cross has a problem, if you will, and the way that Cross likes to indulge its vice is to go to Roland and play at the social club, but Cross doesn't actually own any instruments. Cross can play quite a few of them, but for the most part steals them and uses them as needed, dumps them out, and that could eventually come back to haunt Cross. So there's that, kind of interjecting a struggling an issue with vice or trauma into the game so that you can get some of that experience points using a vice in kind of an obscure way. Or maybe Cross thinks that paintings are incomplete, for example, if it's going to be art, and that Cross thinks that using Cross's own materials, these paintings could be improved, which would make someone who just paid $700-800 or in game terms like 2-3 coin for a piece of art really pissed because that art no longer holds its value because Cross decided that the man absolutely needed a heavy-duty Duck Dynasty mustache and beard combo, which is not a big thing for everybody, as it turns out. So, moving down the list here, everything is pretty much the same. We kind of talked about how different XP triggers work, how the planning works, again, for the teamwork stuff. Today we're going to talk a little bit more about gathering information, but let's quickly touch upon what the Lurk does as its special thing, which is addressing a challenge with stealth or evasion, and that kind of tells us how this character would play. This one would, of course, work really well with pretty much any crew, but of course it's going to work really well with your crews that are focused more on staying hidden, taking advantage of obstacles, or just avoiding obstacles, or getting past harder to get past areas. So, for example, the assassins could probably use a lurk, the cult most likely, hawkers is kind of like take it or leave it, and shadows definitely. That's basically a gang where everybody gets lurk-like abilities. Smugglers could definitely benefit from them. The bravos are kind of maybe, mainly because it's a question of like the stealthy arts. Is that necessarily appropriate for the bravos? In some cases it's yes, but you'll probably find that your interest in playing a lurk will lead you towards those other gang types, just as kind of a heads up. So with each class, it does come with a set of questions that you can answer or at least think about. Like, for example, for the Lurk, it says, how did you learn the stealthy arts of the Lurk? Which aspect are you drawn most? The Invisible Watcher, spying on the unwary. The adroit acrobat, racing across rooftops. The deadly ambush predator, waiting for victims in the darkness. And I think that for this character, the best way to answer that question is really kind of thinking about why a Lurk? Why did he become that? And I really like the last question here, the deadly ambusher waiting for the victim in the darkness. And I think that Tycherosi kind of predator-like nature kind of comes out. And that's what we're going to do, is we're going to use one of these starting builds. And the one that I wanted to go with is the Assassin, which gives me +2 in Hunt and +2 in Skirmish. So let's go ahead and fill that in. 2 in Hunt and 2 in Skirmish. So this character is not going to be good in Resolve. So far, my gang is not very good in Resolve. Once we get over to some of the other ones, we're probably going to start pushing more into this Resolve block. Some of this stuff being more important, especially for stuff like the Slide, the Spider. Those will be more social characters. And then the Whisperers, of course, are arcane characters, so Attune is going to be more important. So that is our Lurk. As far as the dots go, the thing that it tells me to take is Ambush. Now, I'm going to go down the special abilities like I normally do, just kind of talk about each one. Infiltrator means you're not affected by quality or tier when it comes to bypassing security measures. This basically means that you can get past higher tier enemies on equal footing. Instead of rolling with kind of like a disadvantage to the situation, you're going to roll as if they were at your same level. So it does pose a couple questions inside here. It says, are you a renowned safecracker? Do people tell stories of how you slipped under their noses to chief inspectors? Are you exceptionally talented, or exceptional talents yet to be discovered? Kind of things to kind of feed your RP stuff. There's also Ambush, which is when you attack from hiding or springing a trap, you get +1 to your die roll. Which Ambush is the ability that it's suggesting I take for Assassin. So I will definitely copy that one down. Let me get that real quick here. Which is kind of cool because my character is actually built to rough and tumble and can probably hold up real well with our cutter bricks, because I can skirmish and I can prowl, or rather hunt, which means I can use a gun, and basically it just makes me really flexible. And let me do this, because I copied all of the wrong stuff. So Ambush is that special ability. Let's keep going down the list, though, to talk about some of the other ones. We've got Daredevil, which is when you roll a desperate action, you get +1 to your die, but you also take -1 die to any resistance rolls against consequences from your action. So this is a gamble, basically. I'm going to read it here. It says, this special ability is a bit of a gamble. The bonus die helps you, but if you suffer consequences, it'll most likely cost you more. But hey, you're a daredevil, so no big deal, right? Devil's Footsteps. This one's really cool, actually. This is the push ability. So if you push yourself, you can do one of the following. Perform a feat of athletics that verges on superhuman, or maneuver to confuse your enemies so they mistakenly attack each other. So this ability is a push ability. Anytime you use any of the abilities that say you can push yourself to do this, you get the normal bonus of pushing, which is +1 die, +1 effect, or maybe something different depending on the situation that the GM decides if you're making the roll. And then you also are able to perform a feat of athletics that verges on superhuman, or maneuver to confuse the enemies. So not only are you rolling better or doing it better, you're also getting this extra special thing. And then if you have armor that allows you to push for free without having to take stress, you could then use your special armor, use your push ability, and then get your added effect plus whatever the extra from that ability is. So that's kind of your built-in class special combo, if you will. The next one is called Expertise. Choose one of the action ratings. When you lead a group using that action, you suffer only 1 stress at most, regardless of the number of failed rolls. So remember when we did that shared action roll where Brix and Lizette were trying to sneak by, and Brix failed at and cost strain for Lizette? Let's say all three, 4 of these characters, rather, Brix, Lizette, Cobb, and Aran were... and Cross here were Let me fix that real quick here. We're actually stealthing and used Cross's abilities for it to lead the action rather than Lizette's. When, let's say, Brix fails it, Brix's failure will cost 1 stress, but if Cobb also fails it, normally it'd be 2 stress, instead it's only 1. And for that matter, if Lizette fails it, it's still only 1 stress, which is pretty handy, because stress can add up real quick on you. The next one is called Ghost Veil. This one's really cool. You may shift partially into the ghost field, becoming shadowy and insubstantial for a few moments. Takes 2 stress when you shift, plus 1 stress for each extra feature. It lasts a few minutes rather than a few moments. You are invisible rather than shadowy, and you may float through the air like a ghost. I like to think of this as an improved version of putting on the One Ring. It's kind of that same effect. You enter that shadowy, ghosty realm, and you disappear from view. If you want to make it exactly feel like the One Ring, I would go with you're invisible rather than shadowy. But this should help you be able to shift and sneak past guards and stuff like that. It's pretty cool. The next one is called Reflexes. When there's a question about who acts first, the answer is you. This is actually really cool for our assassin for later on, because if there is a question of who attacks who first, I want to make sure that I'm the one that does it every single time. Now, there are some special NPCs that may have reflexes, the ability as well, but otherwise you act first. If your ability and the NPC abilities tie with each other, it's kind of a GM call as to who would actually go first at that point. More than likely to present a challenge for you, GMs are probably going to make that demon go first instead, just because it'll be a surprise. It's a challenge, and it should be fun to defeat. The next one is called Shadow. When you employ your special armor to resist consequence from detection or security measures, or push yourself for feats of athletics or stealth. So this is one of those special armor ones, which you can use to avoid an appropriate consequence, or gain that push without taking the stress like we talked about. Now, the Lurk special items are Fine Lockpicks, Fine Shadow Cloak, which is basically a Ruvian shadow silk that blends into the darkness around it, and it improves your level when you're trying to sneak around. Like climbing gear, a Silence Potion Vial, which is basically the spell of silence on yourself for several moments, and Dark Sight Goggles. These are pretty cool. It's basically the Duskfall version of night vision goggles. So that's basically what it is to be a Lurk. Let's talk about, real quick here, the gather information stuff. These questions I'll go into more detail about as we get to the more social characters, but if you want to gather information in the game, you will be able to ask certain questions here. We're going to talk about the questions, but then we're going to talk about, when we get to the social characters, how you can present those situations and how that comes up, and what the difference between the mission phase or the score phase and the downtime phase, because the game is kind of broken up into 3 main phases: a downtime phase, a score phase, and a free play phase, which rotate through. Starting with free play, then score, then downtime. I don't know why I said it the other way. But anyways, the questions are, what do they intend to do? How can I get them to fill in the blank? What should I look out for? What is the best way in? Where can I hide? How can I find blank? And what is really going on here? The reason I wanted to bring up these questions is because these are all really excellent questions for your character, who is the sneaky type, to be asking. These are things that you can provide to your group to help kind of push along your plans. The type of plan that your character would especially be good at is, of course, stealth, but because of the way that I built my character being kind of an assassin type, according to the build point out, I could probably do fine in an assault. I probably would be terrible at an occult mission, but I could probably do some sort of support for it. Deception could probably work out pretty well, so long as I'm not doing it face-to-face with someone. A social probably wouldn't work very well because I'm not very good at that either. And a transport I could probably do, because usually piloting vehicles goes off of your finesse. Right now I've got 1 dot in it, but I know that this type of character I'll want to invest in finesse and get a little better at that. Let's go ahead and jump over to Friends and Allies real quick here, which is on the first page for the playbook. Let's see. So here's the list. Talda, a beggar, perhaps a mentor who taught you your skills, or perhaps a rival sneak thief. Darmot, a blue coat, perhaps a savvy officer that's busted you many times, or an old friend that has turned to law instead of crime. Frake, a locksmith, perhaps an expert that got to you for consultations, or perhaps a master who creates locks to defeat you. Rosalind, a noble, perhaps an old friend or confidant, or perhaps one of the victims of your espionage bent on revenge. And then Petra, a city clerk, perhaps a good source of information. So I think I really like the idea of Darmot being a cop that's busted you a bunch, and he's just kind of that old beat cop that looks at you as like you've never really learned your lesson. But my character is a foreigner, so I don't think that really works. I think instead I'm going to go with Frake the locksmith as my rival, because I really like the idea of having a locksmith out there that is purposely building locks to try and defeat me. So I would bring that up to my GM, as that's the part that I'm interested in. Next, I would look at who's going to be my ally, and I'm going to say that instead I'm going to go with Darmot as my ally instead of the cop that busts me a lot. Maybe he's a corrupt cop that he has Tycherosi friends, or maybe he is Tycherosi and he kind of sympathizes with me. I like the idea of Darmot being Tycherosi, and it's like, hey, I'll look out for you because you're one of my people, and I know how hard it is on the streets here, that sort of thing. So I think that's how I'd pitch it to my GM. That, in a nutshell, is how to do the Lurk. Now, the two channels that I'm going to recommend today are going to be Distracted Elf and shoot, I am screwing up one of my channels. Hold on one second. Distracted Elf is the first one. She has a 2-season now version of Blades in the Dark, which is pretty good. And you know what? I'll go with another one that I know off the top of my head, Friendly Fire TV, which they've been doing another long-standing campaign of Blades in the Dark as well. I'll get the one that I was trying to think of in the next video. Speaking of next videos, our next one that we're going to be looking at after the Lurk here is the Slide. This is our subtle manipulator and spy, a little bit more of a social type character, and starts us into that social category. Next, after that, is going to be the Spider, and we'll talk about how those two are different, and kind of start to explore some of these gather information tools because they become more apparent and more important as we go along. Once that's done, we move on to the Whisper and then into the different types of crews that are out there, and we really get into the nitty-gritty of different ways that you can play this game. Each of these characters have strong suits, like I said, but crews are really where you decide what type of game you really want to play. So with that said, guys, thanks for tuning in, and as always, I will see you at the gaming table.